I think I'm good. I think
All
kind of
right.
sort of. It's
I
been a
think I'm good.
chaotic day, so if we just want to wing it.
Let's do it, man.
All right.
Again, it's what we do best.
I know. We pretend that we podcast like we know what we're doing, and then we just kind of welcome on everybody in the same way and wing it like this by saying, welcome. Welcome on in, folks, to the Snap Back podcast, where you snap and we snap back. For those who do not know, my name is Guest, also known as It's Guest Gaming, and I am here once again with my co-host of co-hosts, the one, the only, the bearded, the friendly, the Mr. Hip, Default Dan. Good afternoon. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good, man. I mean, it's been a busy week. It's been a pretty busy week, but doing well. Excited to be here, talking through all this Marvel Snap stuff.
Yeah, I mean, don't sound too excited like you always do, but like there's been some fun stuff, to say the least, because it's been about a week and a half since we were able to come back into our next recording, and I'm incredibly caffeinated and ready for some chaos. So as long as you're ready for chaos, I am too, because I think it's going to be over the span of the next week. That's the feature of Marvel Snap. It's chaos. Think about it. We've had Black Knight come on down, who we're going to talk about. We have the Agatha Tournament tonight, and the recording day of this, it's Friday afternoon, and tonight is the Agatha Tournament. Then we've got Nico coming on Tuesday, followed by Werewolf by Night. It's just there's a lot. There's a lot. Are you like, how have you felt about Marvel Snap recently in that aspect? Do you feel like there's good things happening? Or do you feel like there's some really bad directions that the game is starting to turn? Because, I mean, we've gone through different metas. Like, how do you feel about it?
Yeah, so I have mixed feelings. And there's a couple things I don't like. But there's a couple things that I know why they're there. The things I don't like, I know why they're there, and I know what that'll lead to. So, for instance, like right now, I think the meta is kind of starting to shift into an okay place. The last month, I hated it. I hated the meta. I hated Elias. I didn't like Loki. For each week that they were the card of the week, I hated that week. Once we got Elsa, I feel like a lot of people started shifting their decks a little bit more. Loki's fine. Mobius has kind of put him in check. Elias is still annoying, but he's not there as much, right? Like people are realizing, like, especially with Elsa, you're not just going to be able to play Elias and win a game like you could right before Elsa came out. So again, I think Second Dinner and these guys understand that with the cards. And so, yes, when a brand new card comes out, the first couple days, it's going to be rough. But once you kind of get over that meta, it seems to be fine. So currently in the meta and everything that's there, I think it's fine. We're in a place where a lot of different decks can win again. And I'm feeling good about that. Still just not loving the fact that there's nowhere to have fun in the game. And when I say that, I mean like ladder, once you hit infinite, you've got a rank attached to you. So when you play a fun deck and then you lose and now you go from 30,000 to 50,000 or whatever, like there's not a place you can just test decks. And yes, people will say Proving Ground, but I don't want to test the deck in Proving Ground.
Right. Agreed.
So I don't know. I think that's the one thing that I don't like right now is they've taken away my playground that was infinite.
Yeah, I get that. And a lot of people also will very much so promote exactly that. The Proving Grounds is the place to play, Marvel Snap. Because if you want to mess around and you want to have fun, you want to do a meme deck, you go to Proving Grounds. But at the same time, one of the features of Marvel Snap, in my opinion, is the snap mechanic. And that gets completely devalued in Proving Grounds, because how often are you going in there and you're just immediately, okay, it's just Proving Grounds, snap. All right.
Yeah.
Oh, snap. And you snap back. Like it's, and that's not a pun to us. I'm just saying in general, like that's the case, but it's true though. Like you lose that big betting mechanic, which is so critical, especially in certain competitive decks where it's incredibly critical to understand when to snap and when not to snap. And it's one of the things, like I have Lammy coming out for CCG Hub writing an article exactly on that, because it is important for people to understand how to properly leverage snapping. It's not just your percent chance to win. Sometimes it's a little bit more than that, because maybe you've never played poker before. Maybe you're not used to bluffing. Maybe there's other aspects to it that you're just not fully understanding or following. But
Yeah.
snapping is so critical, and I agree with you. Proving Grounds removes that. Infinite
Yeah.
was the fun place. I got to experience it once in the fun
Well,
zone style, but it's true.
yeah, and I would also say, and because again, Proving Grounds, like you mentioning, right now it's and you see this by so many creators. They're just like, look, if you're in Proving Grounds, double snap, fist bump, go. And I get that, but you don't really get to test the deck. And the worst case that I'm having right now is gold almost feels like that in a lot of matches for me because people are getting free gold tickets and they don't know how to be competitive in battle mode. So they've got a
Yeah.
free ticket, they jump in there and they snap on the first game. And I'm just like, I feel confident, but I don't want to snap you back because that's not how this works.
Yeah.
In a competitive sense. So I agree with you. I think it's just this weird spot where they've made gold less competitive because they're giving away these free tickets. They've got Proving Grounds, which is essentially a joke. You don't really get anything out of it as far as points and stuff. And it's just almost a waste of time most of the time, unless you need a silver ticket.
Yeah.
And then, again, ladder, you feel bad when you lose. It literally puts it right there on the screen of like, look, you're going down every time you lose. So that fun deck you wanted to play with, Living Tribunal, Iron Man, Onslaught, sorry, you just went up against
that one. That's actually
Loki.
a decent deck, but like,
well, I mean, it is like I like to play that deck, but then it seems like every time I play that deck, I go against a Loki deck and they have Enchantress for some weird reason in their deck. Like it's always something like a bad matchup, and then that 8-cuber goes away. So yeah, it's rough right now. And again, like I said, I think that that's the one thing. My only negative aspect of Snap right now is there is no fun go play in the sandbox. Area. And the thing is with the ranking, I'm glad they have the ranking. It's one of those things where I do not like that it's there and where they put it, but I'm glad that they have it because the thing is, what will happen? And I'm calling it now. We've talked about it. I've said it over in Discord and stuff. Like they will have an infinite challenge tournament, whatever, right? That just like if you look at Magic Arena, they have the Mythic Championship. They will have the Infinite Championship, and the top X people, 300, 500,000, whatever, will get invites to this tournament. And I'm not saying that I know this 100%, but I'm just saying that this is what I see them doing. We've seen
this movie. Yeah.
So yeah, and that's why we have the website now that shows you everybody and your ranking, and you can see who it is, because I believe when we get to Q1 or Q2 of next year, that's what they're trying to set up, is some giant infinite, championship. And for all those people that are having fun right now and you're not in the top 100, you're not in the top 1,000, it's going to feel real bad when they announce it and you have 30 days to try to make that top, right? So I don't know. That, again, I would have rather seen that to be tied to conquests rather than ladder.
Yeah, it's weird though, because at the same time, I understand each game mode has its own respect, right? The way you build a deck for one is very different than how you play another deck for another. And I just don't know if this was done intentionally, in the sense of like the leaderboard for Conquest, in my opinion, makes more sense because there's more long-term skill involved. But at the same time, then you feed towards Snap going, well, Conquest, everybody stopped playing ladder because they could rank up like this. And then once they hit Infinite, there's no reason to be in it. So then they put the leaderboard back into ladder to keep people going into the ladder mode to compete for #1 in the world or in your region or whatever it is that you want to go for, to feed people back into the ladder. So now the competitive aspect of Conquest is just what?
Just your rewards.
Yeah, that's it.
So
the question I present to you then is, go the other way around. If now the Infinite leaderboard is reinforcing specifically ranked gameplay, what does Second Dinner then need to do to reinforce Conquest?
Yeah, I mean, so here's the caveat to it, right? Like if we have a tournament, if we end up having this big tournament that I'm kind of making up in my mind of what they're going to do, that is still going to be battle mode competition. It's not going to be a one game ladder mode. So that's where I think that I think there should be two leaderboards. I think there should be a Conquest leaderboard, which is truly proving who is the best of the best when it comes to competitive Snap. And I think that the leaderboard over in ladder should be seasonal. It should be resetting every season, and you work to get infinite. And if you want to continue to push, you push that. Because the thing that I don't like about it right now is because it's not seasonal, because it's just all time whatever. Yes, it will sort itself out, and it already has started to sort itself out of who those best people are.
Yeah.
But if you have a season like, let's say Loki, that you don't enjoy playing, you are going to fall down that leaderboard like crazy because you don't want to play in infinite.
Right.
But you may have a season like Black Panther or Zabu where you just say, like, I'm really good at this, and I found a deck that's so good, and I can get to number one because I found that broken deck and I'm good at playing it. So,
yeah,
I don't know.
I'm going to divert here while we're in the live recording specifically because Lammy just came on in and raided with 1,043 people and a lot of people saying happy birthday, happy anniversary. It is both. You are right, Lammy. My birthday was on Tuesday. My 3-year anniversary for live streaming on Twitch is this week. And we're celebrating both with the Agatha Tournament tonight, which just had a prize pool bump to 1650. So now we've added on a 6th, a 7th, and an 8th place payout. So now the top 8 will actually get payouts. So more people will be getting more and more and more rewards for tonight's event. So I'm incredibly excited about it. So thank you so much, Lammy, for the raid. Greatly appreciate you guys. We are in the middle of recording the Snapback podcast, and we're about to detour on it because we're about to take a look at specifically Black Knight, because Black Knight has been, in my opinion, without kind of going into the whole aspect of, you know, everything that I talked about in the Numbers Never Lie article on CCG Hub, I think Black Knight is very undervalued right now. I do think that there is an incredibly competitive aspect to him. And I think that people, we just haven't fully figured him out yet. Okay? Not yet, keyword. I think that there is a deck that will compete and outperform Shuri Taskmaster Sauron using Black Knight. What that deck is, we're on our way to discovering. What that combination is, that's the primary feature combination, we're on our way to discovering. But we're not there yet. We're not there quite yet. We're almost there.
Yeah. I agree with you in certain aspects, right? If you play it like the Shuri deck, it has the capability of doing something very similar. Shuri, you know, you can get your discards early, get your piece, Shuri it, make it bigger, Taskmaster like you would do in the Shuri deck. I think the only downfall compared to the Shuri deck is the fact that if you're playing your Shard first, it's more susceptible to the Shang-Chi and Shadow King compared to Shuri right now, to where, like, hey, I'm going to play down my giant Red Skull, and sure, you got Shadow King, but he's still big. He's still a 14, even if you bring him back down. So I would agree with you if you're building it that way, that there's probably something in there that ends up being pretty crazy within there. We just have to figure out what that exactly looks like. But I think that I think it's like just missing a piece to be a different deck. Like, I don't know what the piece is. I don't know, like, it's a card that does X or Y, but I feel like he wants to be this big thing, but right now all you can think about is the Shuri Taskmaster, because, like, the discard rebirth kind of deck, there's better ones. There's Apocalypse, there's Hela. So it's kind of in this weird spot where, like, I think it's a good card, but I don't feel like if I have 6,000 tokens and and again, I have 6,000 tokens, but if I'm an average player in Snap, I don't spend my money on him, because I don't think he's there yet, but there will be a card at some point, and it's not this month, but at some point, maybe that sets him off.
Very true. Very, very true. And that's why I've been experimenting with the Black Bolt stature combination with him, because I feel like there's something in that discard combination that could then have that secondary outplay. And this is something that I've personally really enjoyed over the last several months, is when a new card comes out, stop making a deck around it, because everybody's going to make a deck around that card.
Yeah.
If you find the secondary play lines that synergize with the card, you end up finding newer synergies. That's why the deck that brought me almost to infinite last season was Loki discard. And Loki was my second win condition on a discard deck that if you didn't pull your combination, you just Loki'd on 5, and then all of a sudden you're back in business. It was it was a backup play. I used it like 25% of the time in the deck, and it was perfect. I loved it, and I would highly recommend trying it if you haven't tried it. But I think Black Knight's very similar. I think that we see, and I know, for example, King of Canada is famous for doing this on all the different events. He loves the yo-yo combination, right? You have your Lady Sif into your Ghost Rider, bring back one of the big cards. There, with this being another piece to that, I feel like that's the combination in where you make this work. It's about specifically getting a 412 Death or a 420 Infinite, and just that. But then from there, what else do you do on turns 5 and 6 that make it work simultaneously? So I think there's something there, but we're not there yet. But I don't want people to ignore Black Knight, because I do think that it's very much going to be a Silk situation where Silk came out. We were like, okay, sure, this is fun or cheeky or whatever. And then one person like Lammy came on out with a crazy combination with Silk and friends. And then all of a sudden, everybody needs to have Silk because it's OP in a specific deck or a specific new archetype that is now grown into the game. It's something along those lines.
And they have helped him. They have helped him with redoing Blade, with, modifying how we have a lot of very targeted discard now, rather than, again, like with the Hella decks back in the day. It was so hard because everything was all over the place, and you always discarded your Hella.
The good old days. I remember back when Hella was actually random. Oh, it was a good time. It was a good day. Good day.
Yeah. So I mean, it's that type of thing to where I think that by the modifications they've done, it's made him a better card. So I definitely think he's being slept on, but at the same time, I can't say he's like, oh, you're sleeping on him because of this deck. But I do find, I think somebody will find something that has that secondary line. And if we look at all of the good decks of the past, like that have been top tier, there truly hasn't been one that had like one card. It was always, here's your 2 paths.
Right.
And if you like this or if you like that, you're going to be able to win while also making sure you're not too all in on 2 different combos, because that'll also mess you up.
Right.
So.
No, I 100% agree. And I mean, in the chat right here, because we're recording this live, they're saying Infinite. And look, I get it. 420 Infinite works great. And with Black Knight, it does work great. It doesn't work great when you also then add in Shuri. And that's my conversation piece on it. And somewhere out there, from several thousand miles and oceans away, I heard Super Tech God groan. It came through my headphones and everything. He sat there just pissed off that I even mentioned Infinite in a negative light. But it's true, though. And the numbers prove that. And if you don't believe me, go take a look at the article. And go take a look at Untapped. I'll tell you right now, numbers prove it. It doesn't work. So, outside of that, though, outside of Black Knight, who I just think we need more time with, and I wouldn't, like you, I wouldn't say it's worth your 6,000 now. I think it will be worth your 6,000 later once somebody breaks it. But it hasn't been broken yet. I do think, though, and it's one of the reasons on the website I pushed so hard to getting Nico content out early, is that Nico Minoru is going to be an absolutely insane card in Marvel Snap. So much so that I think it will be mildly game-changing, where I think that her consistently changing effects is worth mentioning, because she's a 1-drop with 7 different on-reveal spell pieces. And that's wild to me.
I would agree. I think she's going to be a sleeper. Because to me, she's like Snowguard in a sense. When we first saw Snowguard, you were like, I just don't know. The bear, the hawk, this whole, like, it could be something each turn. But I think the more that everybody's gotten used to how Snowguard and the animals work, yes, they've changed them in a sense. But I think with that, because she's a 1-drop, I think she's going to be easier to slot into some decks to test with. If she would have been like a 3-drop or a 2-drop or something like that, I think she fights against a lot of cards that you may put in your deck. But the 1-drop slot, especially with the Kitty Pryde nerf, So many people like not letting you do anything with Nebula on turn one. Like, I think that slot is open again to where it can have somebody that you throw in there and test with and see if it's better than something else. And to your point, you may be getting those effects that really work with your deck. And like you mentioned on CCG Hub, with the different articles that are going on over there. I know with I think it's an upcoming article. I don't want to spoil anything, but from Brad potentially.
It's out.
I don't
It's
know.
out.
Okay, so it's out. So Brad's article kind of talks about some of the decks that she's going to slot in well with. And I think that there's a lot of her effects that are going to be really nice because they can go multiple different ways and give you extra pieces. So I think she'll be good. Will she be busted? I don't know if she'll be busted right away, but I do think that it's going to add an extra line. And I think this is one of those quote unquote pro cards. So like Loki is a pro card. You can play Loki in anything, but like if you really want to play Loki, you have to understand when to play it, how to play it, what you're going to get in your hand.
Right.
And I think that Nico is one of those cards.
Yeah, I agree, because you're not only going to be able to mess with the Destroy archetype, you're going to be able to mess with the Move archetype, you're going to be able to mess with Devil Dino decks because of card draw, you're going to be able to mess with Patriot because of demons, going on the battlefield. And I think a lot of people are very much so undervaluing that her randomness is not as random as you think, because she's going to have different effects. Yes. And it's going to affect certain cards. Yes. But that doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It just means that Nico, in my opinion, is the card that's going to, and swear by the idiocy on this, okay? I think Nico is, for example, the card that makes Zoo competitive, first off. Because if you think about what it does, I think that it makes Zoo, like Thanos Zoo specifically, I think it makes it actually competitive. Yes, you have a lesser chance to pull her, but you do have a much better chance at making the rest of the cards in that deck feed into what that deck would want to do, which it doesn't do successfully. Even Classic Zoo, with a better chance, obviously, to pull Nico, go ahead and put your America Chavez in there, hashtag Team Chavez, throw it on in there to an 11-card deck, and the second that you have 3 or more 1-drops in a deck, you are 75% or more guaranteed to pull a 1-drop on turn 1. So you're filling your immediate line and you're feeding into Nico a lot better. So I do think that the ability to create demons, it's going to make Patriot Zoo a competitive deck. Drawing all those extra cards, destroying other cards, turning them into demons that get the reinforcement buff. You pull out a crap card and then put out another. Like, I think that her randomness feeds very heavily into that.
Yeah, and I think you're right in the fact of like the Zoo deck is a good spot to try her out with at the beginning. I think the only thing you have to be cautious of is we're in a lull with Killmonger right now. Killmonger has disappeared, just like we've had in the past with Cosmo and some of these other like really powerful cards.
True.
So if she gets out of line, like the Destroy deck you were using before we started the podcast, like those decks may start to come back. Just because right this second, a lot of people are using Kitty as a 1-drop, and it's very hard to hit her with Killmonger. Whereas if she becomes the new 1-drop, if Nebula becomes the new 1-drop, I think you start to see him come back. But I like her. I think that some of her stuff, some of her spells are going to be really cool, and it's going to be able to, just like they're saying in chat, like start to take 2 or 3 archetypes and kind of merge them. And she may be, like we talked to Black Knight, she may be that card that can kind of tie a couple things together to where you have backup plans because of her spells.
Yeah. And I don't think it's going to be one that completely gets demuned, like, because, and this is a mild rant, but I absolutely hate the idiots. And I'm sorry, I will call you idiots publicly to the rest of the world. If you're one of the idiots that immediately says, whenever any new card comes down, it's a no ability card. Okay, find a way to destroy it. If it's a on reveal card, oh, just play Cosmo and it does nothing.
Yeah.
Or it's an ongoing card. Oh, just play Enchantress to just, I don't care. I don't care. Okay. You could say that for every single card that comes on down. And let me make it very clear. I don't care because you don't play in fear in Marvel Snap. You don't not play a big card because you're scared of Shang-Chi. You don't not play a card on the final turn because you're scared of Goliath. You don't not play certain things because you're constantly in fear in Marvel Snap. You play around or you retreat. That's what you do. It's a part of the game. So when a new card comes out and they say that Nico is all on reveal stuff, oh, you just play Cosmo. You've heard me from the mountains already. So I think that Nico has a place in this game. Really. I really, really do. And I think that people are undervaluing how big of a place that is when you're putting down cards and destroying them and drawing more cards, which is one of the most powerful mechanics in the game. And you're moving cards to the right, which doesn't happen except for Ghost Spider. And what, Bifrost? Like, you have to randomly pull one of those 100 and something locations to get a card to move at one time? Like, I'm sorry. Nico's a busted card, and people don't know it yet, and I'm trying to be ahead of the curve for once because I don't want to be like Legion all over again.
Yeah. I mean, and to your point, I mean, I know chat's pointing it out too, but like Cosmo's not really going to do anything because you're playing her early. Like, you may wait to play her, but you're probably playing her way before that Cosmo ever comes down, which is the only reason why I bring up like a Killmonger. If you're going through her plus Demon or whatever, just be aware of a Killmonger. But I agree. I think that this is one of those cards. Like, I think Silk is a very great counterpoint of like comparison with her, because I think it's a card that will be played the first week because her mechanic is so different. I think a lot of people are going to pick her up. They're going to play with her and they're going to go, I don't like this. Kind of like Snowguard in a way. There was a lot of people picked up Snowguard and they're like, I don't like Snowguard. But later on, we start to see the value in it. And I think that once you understand the spells, it should work pretty well. So I'm excited to see what kind of comes out of being able to use her. And at worst case, she's going to open up the field for experimentation in decks, just like High Evolutionary did. When he came in, it opened the doors to say, hey, you know, all these cards you haven't played with in a long time, go play with them. Go try them out. Go see what you like. And yes, a lot of them kind of got thrown to the side, but a lot of them started to stand out. And I think that this is kind of what's going to happen with these spells is the pro players are going to find these crazy nuances and you're just going to be like blown away when you see it in action.
One of the things I'm also contemplating with this is the benefit of her in Lockjaw, because on one end you could have her pop out of Lockjaw and then her effect goes live for whatever second card gets played, like if it's a later turn. So I think that there's something to be said about understanding randomness. And we've seen that with move cards, for example. We saw that with Silk. Like, once you learn how to mitigate it, you understand your percent chances, right? Your percent chance to draw a card is just as important to understand your percent chance to get the spell that you need next. So she is going to be a very cerebral card in that aspect, where you're going to need to keep track of, if you play her on one, okay, I've used the duplicate spell. That's not coming back, which means I'm waiting for to drop. So she's going to be a difficult card to learn. But though I really do feel those who use her and learn how to use and work around her, they're going to be winning tournaments with her. I think it's going to be that impactful.
Yeah, I think so too. And that, I think that the RNG is going to also help you in games. The RNG of Loki, the RNG of some of the cards we've seen in the past, Coulson, Agent 13, things like that in the meta many months ago, almost a year ago. But it's those RNG pieces that can win you games and make it to where your opponent doesn't know what you're doing. And so seeing those spells, I do think it'll be interesting to see if when you play her, I don't know if this has been answered anywhere, so I'm just throwing it out there, but when you play her, does your opponent know what spell you got? So
I don't think we've seen that yet. Like, to see, she has an animation on top of her on your side of the battlefield. So I feel like that's a public animation in the sense that like both opponents should be able to see it, kind of like the evolved aspect. Because is there any other animation that only you see
Well,
besides
you don't see
Mysterio
the
clones?
evolved. You don't see the well. You see the evolved
When it's on the
aura,
battlefield,
but
is
you
what I'm
don't.
saying.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is like, yeah, like Howard though. So like when I play Howard, I can see what's under Howard, but you can't see what's under Howard. So would it
Okay.
be when you play
There you
her,
go.
you see the spell, but they can't?
That would be it. I think that makes her even more busted if that's the case. I think if
Yeah.
you can always see the spell that's coming up, but your opponent doesn't have the ability to see the spell, that is absolutely different levels of busted. And it's kind of
Yeah.
like the spider ham effect again of like, does the opponent see it when you spider ham? Or do you see what card gets hammed? If that's the case,
Right.
that's stupid, insanely good.
Yeah.
It's for me, the example I was going to use is the Mysterio clones. Because you can see
Yeah.
which one is the real one as a reminder to you, but they can't tell because it all looks exactly the same. So I think if it's taking that aspect, and I hadn't even thought about that until you said it, that if only you can see what spells are coming up next, dude. But simultaneously, if your opponent can see what the next spells are coming up, that's also really interesting from a defensive standpoint, how to play into or around Nico.
Right. Right. I have a feeling they can't see it. I have a feeling it's like Howard, and you get to see it and they don't. And so it gives you that advantage of why you play it. So
talk about an opponent's like difficult thing to just difficult mechanic to have to follow is somebody plays Nico on 1 on your opponent's side. And now you're also trying to keep track simultaneously. If it's a competitive game and you're watching how many spells did they use, what mechanics, what animations happened on the screens. What did you see? What did you get a duplicate of? What did you destroy? What turned into a demon? Okay, so you're left with this and this and this. It's a lot to take advantage of. That's why I think she's going to be so busted. I don't know about Werewolf on the other end of it, because I think Werewolf is going to be a surprisingly good card. But I think between the two, I think Nico's, like, to me, the one I would say, if you're a competitive player, go Nico. If you're a daily casual player, go Werewolf. And that's not saying that Werewolf is a bad card. I think that Werewolf by night will just be an easier card to pilot in more decks.
Yeah, and I think that Werewolf brings Cosmo back. Like right now, we're still in a world where Cosmo's kind of here and there.
Wait, why?
He's not everywhere.
He's not on reveal.
Because it's when an on reveal happens, right?
You're talking. I thought you meant like his mechanic would be blocked by that. I'm like, no. Yeah, when an on reveal card is played at any other location.
Yes. So they play Werewolf on the right side. You play Cosmo on the left side. Now they can't reveal stuff on left side, so we can't move there. So literally now you know where they're going to be playing their on reveals from then on. So you can start to predict. So essentially you're limiting a lane of where Werewolf can trigger. And so, between having your Shang towards the end and things like that, like Shadow King, which is all over the place anyway, like I think that there's some pieces that make it to where you can control a Werewolf a little bit easier compared to like a Nico or whatever. So I still think Werewolves can be great. There's so many on reveals that we're already using just as standard cards to where he's going to trigger a few times. But then also like, I'm thinking like, I'm going to be mean, right? I'm going to Cosmo in one lane, and then I'm going to turn 6, if I have priority, I'm going to Kingpin in the other lane. So if he moves over there, Kingpin's going to swat him down. Like there's some stuff, right, that can like be used in there. But I don't know. It'll be interesting.
And thank you for the chat, Dustin, for shouting this out, because it was, and I had forgotten about this until that question just got asked in the chat, because Glenn did ask this. If you play an on reveal into a Cosmoed lane, Werewolf still moves. The on reveal doesn't resolve, but it is still played at that location. So Werewolf would still hop into the Cosmo lane, but it would be obviously a weaker Cosmo lane because you've played a card that thrives on an on reveal piece into a Cosmo lane. I think that Werewolf has very much so, like I said it, I forget it was a past podcast or a past conversation, where I think that he also fits into Zoo for the same reasons. I think him being paired into like Korg and Iceman and all of these stellar one drops that are on reveals that are already pretty good cards, he just ramps up like hell on turns 4 and 5, because you can drop down off
As long as you
curve
don't,
your Khazar
yeah,
or your Blue Marvel or your other on reveal card or even Ultron. He moves
yeah,
out of the way and then into the Ultron lane. Like that's a nice little buff. So I
yeah.
think that
As
he's
long as
got
long
cool
as you don't,
things.
yeah, as long as you don't fill like that's. I think that's going to be his hard part. So just like Silk, just like some of these other cards, it's making sure you don't accidentally fill lanes too fast, and he has places to
Yeah.
move. It's a little easier than some of the other cards around that, but um, yeah, I agree with you. I think that he's a good card. He'll get play. He's an easy enough card to understand the mechanic, so not as detailed as like a Nico, to where most people will be able to play him. Um, it's definitely going to be one of those things where right now Shadow King's running around as a really good card. If you guys don't play him, he's a good card. So I don't see him going anywhere in the near future with these types of cards, continuing to come out like Elsa, right? Like,
Yeah.
so.
So I'll also use this opportunity to give a not a shameless self promotion because it's not about me, but I'm going to use this opportunity to tell y'all when it comes to the premiere of Werewolf by Night with CCG Hub, there will be another premiere that has a direct correlation to Werewolf by Night. And that is the only
Okay.
hint and clue I will give on this podcast. But over the next
Nice.
10 days, pay attention to other streams, videos, articles, because I'll be dropping a couple more hints about something else that is also simultaneously happening on the reveal of Werewolf by Night. And I'll leave it at that.
Nice.
So little fun, Easter egg drop to throw on down in there. So
speaking of, unless you want to continue about Werewolf.
No, I just wanted to ask you if you have 6,000 tokens and you can only get Nico or Werewolf, who are you getting?
For me, it's Nico. I think, and again, I'm more of a competitive, like digging into the deeps and the weeds and everything of cards. So I want to see what I can do with Nico. She also has really great synergy with this, like Destroy in general, which is one of my favorite archetypes. So that's where my tokens are going. But if I wasn't like that, I'd probably go Werewolf. Like if I was the casual player that just wants to see some cool stuff happening, I'd probably go Werewolf. But I'm too deep. I gotta go with Nico.
I agree with the approach of like if you're a casual player and you only can get one, get Werewolf. If you're a super competitive or you're a theory crafter deck builder type person, go Nico. Because I think there's a much higher ceiling, but a longer learning curve with Nico. And I think there's a much easier, faster result, profit win, if you will, from Werewolf by Night. So like when I do an article series, I wouldn't be surprised if Nico has awful stats after 2 days. And I would not be surprised if Werewolf by Night has amazing stats after 2 days. But a month from then, I would not be surprised if it was completely the opposite. That Nico is an OP card and Werewolf by Night is just kind of a choice on your surfer decks. I wouldn't be surprised by that whatsoever.
Yeah, and you also have a Psychotic Wolf out in chat also saying like the old school move decks will be really good with Werewolf too, because most of them are revolved around on reveal like Ghost Spider, Iron Fist, and things like that. So you may see some decent stats popping up in there too. So yeah, I think he's gonna be the easier card to use and probably fit into a couple different decks. So.
I think so too. I think it's going to be interesting because to the opposite end of it, I think that move actually doesn't want Werewolf. I think that move gets in the way of Werewolf. I think that because you're constantly adding cards to a lane and then adding him versus play a card in a lane and then add him only. So you're looking at a lot of 3-card synergies with move, then needing to have space for Werewolf by Night versus 2-card synergies like Doctor Strange all by itself or Doctor Strange and then a card and then Werewolf. So that's how I kind of look at it of move would work. Craven, hey, obviously, duh. But I think that Werewolf ends up in a Silky Smooth deck at most where there's some mitigation of it, but not like a full-on dedicated move. Like Molt is going to experiment, but not fully enjoy him and move. Like that's how I look at it.
I think you're going to have to be like very big brain if you put him in move. To your point, he's going to clog up some spaces. So like you have to think through, okay, I'm playing him on 3. On 4, I'm going to do this, so he moves here. 5, I'm going to do this, so he moves here. 6, I'm going to do, and knowing where every single card is going to move. It isn't the old school, like, all right, let me throw a bunch of stuff out. Heimdall, cross my fingers.
Yeah, no.
This one's going to be very like, he's going to be here when this ends. And Heimdall's going right side, and he's coming over to Heimdall after everything moves. Like, so that way he has to be at this spot before Heimdall comes down. So, like, I think it would be like you would have to know your turn 1 through 6 before you're ever even into those turns. Like, you're thinking of turn 6 on turn 3, knowing where he's going to end up being. But I do think he could be decent within some of that.
I think he's going to be a B tier card. I think Nico long term will be an A tier card.
Yeah. So speaking of kind of randomness and Werewolf by Night and Nico and all of this randomness that's going on and chaos that's out there, we have a special event happening tonight. You mentioned it earlier when in between some stuff. I don't know if that's actually going to end up in the podcast itself, but wanted to definitely talk about it, right? We've got the chaos of the Agatha tournament. So we got some tournaments and stuff going on, but tonight specifically, you've got the Agatha opening going on.
Yeah, I'm going to refresh it on the screen here to see what our total tallies are at now, because now it's 1650 in prizing, and we're now at 190 people registered for the event at the current time of this recording, which is about 7 hours before the event goes live. And that's normally, when we start seeing the largest push of people joining into the event. The Agatha Open is my tournament. I've never hosted a tournament before. I had this idea a couple of months ago and then put a challenge out there in the community to hit a follower goal on Twitch. We hit it. 2 days later, I put out the advertisement trailer for the Agatha Open, which is up on YouTube, and then put out a date release trailer. And it's meant to do two things. It's meant to be ridiculously fun, right? It is not a meta-breaking tournament. This is not a tournament like any other tournament that's been done in Marvel Snap. It's we've structured it kind of like double round robin in the sense where, listen, you're just going to go into a match, same Agatha deck, try to win. If you win, you get a point. You leave that, you take your screenshot, you leave that, go over to the next, registration saying, boom, get me another matchup, and you get matched up again. And you just try to get as many wins as you can during the duration of the tournament. It's not a do one match, wait till everybody finishes. Do one match. That's not how we wanted to build it. So it'll have a constantly running leaderboard. You'll be able to see how your decks are doing and how your performance against everybody else is. And now it's a top 8 payout simultaneously. And
so it's similar to like our good old days, right? Of QBrush, where here's your time
in the
frame.
Leaderboard sense,
get as many wins as you can, right?
On ladder.
And, at the end of that,
it's a singular deck setup as well, because once you and that's where it is like other tournaments where you have your one deck, register your deck, you submit the deck code, it's put in on Rally Cry, and boom, that's the deck you're going up against. The only stipulation is that every deck has to have Agatha. And I even had some people who have done similar types of competitions privately in their own communities even reach out to me talking about card restrictions, where they've done a version of, let's say, an Agatha one, but it didn't have any discards and you couldn't play Wave. And it was structured that way, where it was literally straight up Agatha always being played. There was no way to get rid of Agatha unless if a location did it, like Sokovia, for example. And I didn't want that, because I wanted there to be a little bit of control in there to then, at the end of this, take a look at those decks and say, who made Agatha actually work? Why did it work? Are there consistent cards here between those that had the most wins in the highest amount of time? Is Lady Sif as important as people think she is in Agatha decks? Or is Jean Grey better? Or is Spider-Ham the card to keep an eye on, even though it's definitely not? Nobody should be playing Spider-Ham. Let me just throw that out there. Okay, with the new version, no one should be playing Spider-Ham. Play Spider-Ham, you have ruined your chances. Stop. So
you have Spider-Ham for the people that are AFK and they're just like mindlessly pushing buttons, and you're like, oh no, you got to play now. You got to play now.
That's just mean. We don't want that. No, because you don't want the live opponent. You want Agatha, random on random. Okay. That's your path to victory. Remember, when you've got two lost people, if both people are moving, they will only intersect at less of a chance unless versus one person moving. So you want two chaotic things happening at once, at least for the first 3 turns. Damn it. Don't ruin this for them. But I think it will be fun. I think it really will be fun.
Yeah.
Just throwing it out there. So that's happening tonight. The event goes live starting at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Make sure you register. I'll have the link available. Otherwise, you can go to bit.ly/Agatha Open. Capitalized. Agatha, capitalized, open. bit.ly/capital Agatha, capital open. There you go. That's it. Plain and simple. I love that this has actually come to be. Thank you to all of our sponsors. Featured sponsor, CCG Hub, coming on through to say the minimum to make so much of this happen as it was, as well as our co-sponsors, Rally Cry, Advanced.gg, and, amazingly, Snapkang, whose sweatshirt I was wearing earlier as well. So over $1,650 in cash and prizes to give out for Agatha, which is one of the largest online-only tournament tally pools we've ever seen in Marvel Snap, and it's for an Agatha tournament, and I can't believe it actually happened. So I'm happy. I'm really, really happy.
Nice. Yeah, absolutely.
But outside of the lack of control, okay, there is something that I did have I'm having a lack of control on, I think is the better way to word it. I'm having a lack of control because I'm still debating if I want to go down here to the Newverse page and go buy the Pro Bundle again, because I don't know if you saw this.
Don't do it.
But they brought back the Pro Bundle again. The $99.99 bundle is publicly accessible again, and you can buy it twice. It's $100, 12,500 credits, and 8 packs of 155 random boosters. Is this a good thing or a bad thing for Marvel Snap to have brought this back, in your opinion?
So it's a good thing for the people who really want to support the game. So here's the thing. I won't say I didn't do it. I did it on the first one. I got the Pro Bundle. And at the time, it was good. There was a lot you could get in your collector's levels, caches, and things like that when you were doing it. Now, if you do it, you're just essentially trying to get spotlight caches. So I think it comes down to, as a player, if you are trying to get collection complete, if you truly don't have any spotlight caches, you have new cards that you want to get, whether it's this month or next month, then maybe. But for me personally, I'm at the point that I have good many spotlight caches saved up, so this really doesn't do anything for me. That's all it's going to get you is upgrade these cards to get spotlight caches, because everything else in between is not really meaningful at this point. So yes, it's a good thing if people are really truly trying to get the spotlight caches, but the fact that if you are semi collection complete, if you're only missing 4 or 5 cards, this is probably not what you want to put your money on.
Right. And
that's my opinion.
And that's where I agree with you, where for those who are looking at the Pro Bundle, you need to look at your collection. You need to understand how complete you are. You need to look at the calendar of upcoming spotlights, figure out how many cards you're looking at, and then decide if that bundle is worth it to buy or not. Now, for those who are who are missing, without looking at the actual direct numbers, me just spitting shit off the top of the head, right? If you're missing 10 or less cards, this is probably not, I should say maybe even less, 8 or less cards, I'd say. This is probably not for you.
Yeah.
This Pro Bundle. Because it's exactly that. Because you get that many boosters with it, it's meant to bring you up the ladder to get the spotlight caches to get your Series 5 and 4 cards that you're missing. That's the biggest reason you do this. And if you're higher than that on collection completion, and spotlight caches are not going to be coming down the pipeline for you that are profitable to what you're trying to unlock, it doesn't make any sense, because you should also really only be opening spotlight caches unless if you have 4 of them. and then get the target
Yeah.
new card guaranteed. That's a big tactic, people.
Well,
Okay, get that right.
Yeah, it's that and the fact that you're missing multiple cards within that week, right?
Right.
So like the questions being asked in chat, like, is this meant for us or is this meant for newer players? This is meant for I wouldn't say brand new players, but I mean, if you're brand new, this is a good deal because you're going to get a bunch of Series 3 cards and all kind of stuff as you go up that collection level. But if you're Series 3 complete, I think what you have to really look at is, to your point, how many cards are you missing? Look at this week, next week, the next 4 or 5 weeks, right? Look at, and you can do that on all these websites that are out there. Look and see what are the cards coming down the pipe, and am I missing 2 or 3 each of those weeks? Am I missing? I haven't looked at it, so I know like Phoenix Force is coming up, right? Like there's cards. If you're missing those cards, then it probably is. You can get a couple. You can get a handful. I haven't done the math, but you can get a bunch of spotlight caches here, and you can probably fill out your collection a lot more. But if you're only missing 3 or 4, you've been able to keep up for the most part on your cards. And I would even say if you're just to the point where each of these next 4 weeks, you're only missing 1 card each week, I don't know if it's worth it. I think you need to be missing like 2 or 3 because chances are you will not hit the new card on your first cache. Yes, it can happen, but odds are it's not going to happen. So I would hate to see somebody spend that type of money on it and then literally get like 2 new cards because their odds are just so bad.
I agree with you there. I think it's not meant for the long time players. I think this is more meant for those who are trying to catch up. I think this is more about making up for lost time rather than trying to get ahead. So if you're someone who has never bought big packs before and you're been in the game for like 3 months or less, this is more geared towards you. This is meant for that, not for those who have already bought it once or twice before, like some of us have.
Well, and again, I'm not saying it wasn't done earlier. But at this point and where I'm at in the game, it's just one of those that and the way the game has evolved, you don't get Series 4 cards, you don't get Series 5 cards from these caches anymore. It's only the spotlight caches. I just don't think the value is there like it used to be. And the fact that you're not getting gold, you're not getting other resources in the game, tokens, whatever, it's strictly just credits, which means you are limited to that collector level. I just don't think it's going to be that money well spent. And again, yes, you do get a bunch of boosters. You can get some cool splits or whatever potentially, because you may also get those 100 whatever boosters on a card you'll never use.
Yeah.
And you don't have enough boosters to split it 5 times to get gold or 4 times to get inked. So I don't know. I don't know why they rolled it back out. Maybe it was even like an accident.
No, it was intentional. I know that for a fact. It was intentional. And it's, in my opinion, it's to help people unlock the Enchantress variant. That's what I think it is. It's just that more than anything else. Look, it's a business. They're going to need to make money. It's the beginning of the quarter. I get it.
People will buy it.
Yeah. Oh, people will buy it. And certain
happen.
people probably should more than others because it's a better value than buying just straight up gold, because those boosters allow you to move up the collection track, especially if you're someone in the mid, somewhere between 1,000 and 3,000 collector level. Like that makes a hell of a lot of sense because you're not only moving up, you're also unlocking cards and Series 3 cards. And that's where I think it's really, really important and worth it if you're going to spend your money to do that. Because if is good. All right. Now, simultaneously, and semi-switching gears on it, with the if is good. If you get this combination of cards that you've sent to me to roll out, I am curious to see how, because there's one specific combination in there I have not done before.
There's one card I'm experimenting with.
Yeah, and so I'm very curious to see how you do it. So your featured deck for the deck highlight today has a combination of 2 cards I have not seen before in a deck successfully run, keyword, which is Phoenix Force and Nimrod. Typically, I don't think Phoenix Force with Nimrod decks. I feel like they're 2 very different archetypes, but you've decided to put them together, or you've run them together, or you've seen other people run them together.
I've run them together. I defended the WSF championship with this deck
Okay.
And I play it a lot. I play the deck a lot.
So
So
talk to me about it, because I'm not sure if I agree with it.
all right. So we'll go through the deck real quick. The 12 cards you're looking at is Forge, Ghost Spider, Carnage, Multiple Man, Magic, Killmonger, Venom, Deathlock, Shuri, Phoenix Force, Lady Deathstrike, and Nimrod. All right, so
I'm listening.
Lady Deathstrike, I'll come back to, but she is the card I'm playing with right now. I'm experimenting with. I haven't loved her, but she's there.
Okay.
Nor typically that can be any 6-drop. That can be Chavez to make sure you're getting the cards you want. That can be Zola for a better 6-drop play. That can even be Heimdall, depending on how you play your deck. So you do have some space within that Deathlock, not Deathlock, that Deathstrike spot.
Okay.
So let's take this as 2 different decks, right? So we're gonna take this as 2 different decks. We've got the Phoenix Force deck and we've got the Nimrod deck. The reason why they're together at a high level before we jump into it is because it gives you the ability to shift if you need to shift. When you go solid Nimrod, there's a lot of stuff that can mess you up. And if you go solid Phoenix Force, there's also a lot of stuff that can mess you up, or you don't get your draws right, or you don't get your turns right. So it gives you some backup plans within here. So we'll start with the Phoenix Force deck. The Forge nerf, buff, whatever you want to call it, amazingly helped this deck. It allows you to forge on 1. And if you guys don't know Forge is a 1-drop. The next card you play is going to get +2 power. Your turn 2 that you want to hit right after Forge is Multiple Man. Multiple Man is a 2/3. With that Forge, now he's going to be a 2/5. When he moves, he creates a copy back at the location that he moved from. And so the next thing you want to do is you want to kill that Multiple Man. Yes, I know you just made him a 2/5, but you want to kill him.
Don't
you can
pander
do that
down to our audience. If they're listening to this shit, you know damn well they know what these fucking cards are. Okay?
I just got to make sure.
This is not, school time, with first grade default Dan. Okay, come on.
So
treat me like the adult I am.
So here's the fun part. If you have Ghost Spider and you have Carnage, now you can use Ghost Spider to pull Multiple Man to make a second copy, and use Carnage to kill the one that's by himself. You only want to kill 1 card if you're going down this path. So again, you can do that with Deathlock, Carnage, Venom, whatever. You kill them, and then turn 4, you can either Shuri or you can Phoenix Force. Now you need to understand on your 4 how they're doing on their board. Are they going to do something weird like a Cosmo or whatever that's going to stop this? But you want to make sure that if you Shuri and then Phoenix Force on 5, you can move them around, right? It's going to be huge. He's going to be a huge card that you can move around. Or you just Phoenix Force and you have 5 and 6 to move them around. Remember, Phoenix Force will bring your Multiple Man back. Now your Multiple Man is like a 10 power card if you've got him the 2/5. And now you can move that 10 everywhere around and you just get multiple 10s on the board. Really good card. So that's kind of what you're doing within that whole model, right? You want to get yourself up to that, move around, get your big 10s all over the board. Now, Magic is also in there if you need to give yourself 1 extra turn. Maybe you didn't draw something, and this works for both cards. So this is your middle card that just helps you extend. Yeah, Magic helps you extend. Just be aware. People can remove Limbo. So if you're trying to set up Nimrod or whatever on turn 6 to be able to move on 7 or do whatever on 7, you can get screwed. So just remember that as you go through. So looking at the other side of the deck, which is the Nimrod deck, basic Nimrod, Shuri on 4, Nimrod on 5, and then you want to kill it twice on turn 6. If you have Magic, you can even kill it another time on turn 7 if you need to. But that's going to give you a 12 power Nimrod on the Shuri. And then the one important thing as you're playing this, so this is more the pro moves in here, make sure you understand where your Venom is going, because your Venom is going to absorb all that power. And usually you want him to do the second kill, usually. So just kind of understand where your Venom goes and where those extra Nimrods are going to go around. So that's your 2 different decks. Now we've crushed them together because it allows you to really look and see how you're doing. Now, I'm usually not and I think this is where your head's at. I'm usually not using Phoenix to bring Nimrod back. I'm usually just using, if I've gone Nimrod, I'm going full Nimrod. I'm going Shuri, Nimrod, kill it there. I do have Forge as a backup. You can Forge Nimrod
Right.
and do your
Just
kills.
in case, yeah.
He's not as big. But if I've magic and I've extended this game, then it does allow me on turn 7 to do something where I can like Phoenix plus a kill spell. So I can kill him one more time and get that Phoenix back. So depending on how I've killed stuff, there are some different lines you can do with that. Even if, let's say, your Phoenix brings back Shuri, because you've killed a lane that was Shuri plus Nimrod, and he brings back Shuri instead of Nimrod, you can sometimes time that right with like your Venom being on your turn 7 with your Phoenix. So there's a couple different lines within there. So it is kind of two different decks crushed together.
Yeah.
And you just kind of know within your first 3 turns how I'm going to play this. Am I going to play it Nimrod or am I going to play it Phoenix? And if you literally have no cards that are working together, that's your easy retreat. So it works well.
You're using currently then Lady Deathstrike as just a tech card to remove your opponent's cards more than anything?
So because of Elsa right now, and Elsa is being everywhere, I'm using her as a kill on that lane. So there's a couple times where I play like Forge on like 4 just to pump her up a little bit, or maybe even Shuri into her just to kill like the lane where they have Elsa,
Angela,
Morbius, whatever, right? Like they just have these random cards. You may not hit all of them, but like killing Elsa on 5 and they're thinking of a turn 7 game, like you've stopped a lot of their gameplay. So it's pretty good.
It is really good. I just don't believe Lady Deathstrike, but everything else makes sense. Like I started. I'll also say that I pulled her in specifically in the last couple weeks because prepping for that title right there that you see over my shoulder. Prepping for that, I was going against both times when he uses a lot of 1 and 2 drops, so they're a lot smaller cards. Gotcha.
So I've started to experiment, and I found her to be okay. If she was a 4 drop, without a question, she'd be in the deck. The 5 drop is the weird part because if you don't have that turn 7, it is like you're wasting a whole turn. But because there's a lot of Elsa decks running around right now, she does hit a lot. She can literally just take down a lane for you. So yeah, it's a fun deck. I'd say give it a try. It may not be for you if you're trying out the deck because it is 2 different decks that are kind of fighting over the same stuff. But there's some cool stuff I've done with Ghost Spider on the last turn where they think things are going to be a certain spot and then just moving it all around has been really helpful. Killmonger, again, taking out those kitties and things like that, because with the way the Elsa decks work right now, it's harder for them to throw priority than it used to be.
Yeah.
And you can take down kitties with Killmonger and stuff now. So
very cool. All right. I'll try it. I'll try it with the mindset that Lady Deathstrike can be replaced by either Chavez or Heimdall.
Yeah.
Those are
Zola's fine.
Or Zola. Yeah.
You know, Null's fine if you have a turn 7. I mean, like there's a lot of cards that can go in there. Destroyer, if you go down the Nimrod path heavily. I don't know.
Yeah. Heavily. Keyword there. Heavily.
Yeah. I think Chavez is probably your better one just to make sure you have a cleaner draw.
Lines.
Making sure you draw what you want. But I would say whether it's I think Heimdall is the one that can get people more. People forget
because as I'm looking at
Heimdall moving stuff.
Yeah, as I'm looking at it, if I'm not Chavezing, right? And if I put in like Zola and I look at, okay, what could happen here as what are the bad turn 6 draws? What cards suck to pull on turn 6? Quite a few of them. Unless if you're guaranteeing yourself that you're going in the Shuri Nimrod line, then you're okay. But if you're trying to also build the secondary line in there, I agree. I'd probably go Chavez, but I'll try the Lady Deathstrike variation first. But I like it.
Yeah.
Interesting combination. You've sold me. Hopefully, maybe, we'll see this explode on ladder. And we'll take a look at the stats and pull on the ability that maybe you're on to something.
Maybe so.
Maybe. I mean, if you had to guess, just before we head on out of the podcast portion of this, if you had to guess on that deck right now, because you also use Untapped on your PC, right?
Yeah.
All right. If you had to guess how that deck is doing right now, how well do you think it's doing?
It's over 50%.
Over 50% win rate?
Yeah. I only know that because I know how to play the deck very well.
Well, look at you, Mr. Fancy Man.
It's a deck like it's a variation on the deck I've been playing since Nimrod dropped. So ever since he released, it's the deck I've won the WSF title a couple times with now. I'm trying to see.
Well, I'll tell you, don't worry. Because the deck is not even
stats.
registered on Untapped.
Yeah.
This version of this deck in this configuration does not exist without also having Human Torch. So this is a completely unique deck. So I'll try playing it. I invite our users to try playing it. I'll have this deck list available on the description in the YouTube video as well. So you can grab the deck right away, try it. I want to see a week from now how this deck does. And that's with Nico coming on out too. So curious.
I've got it as a 63. Yeah, 63%
old man
win
eyes
rate.
There. 63%.
Yeah, I'm terrible.
Okay.
So
we'll take
again, it could be more, it could be less, but that's what I've got being tracked currently with it.
Cool. So well, let's take a look in a week from now and see how bad it tanks. So appreciate it, man. I appreciate you coming on, as always, and doing this. For those who don't know, please let the world know where they can find you and what you do in this magical world of Marvel Snap.
Yeah, exactly. You can find me over on Twitch, twitch.tv/defaultdan. I stream Mondays and Wednesdays when it comes to Snap, and then you'll see me occasionally here and there. I also got a YouTube, youtube.com/defaultdan. I'm going to be getting some content at some point up there, but I do have some content over there so you can check it out. And then again, the other thing I do really big in this community is I run tournaments. So we got another tournament coming up in November. So just be on the lookout for that. Registration should be going up, I think, next week. So follow my Twitter and all of that kind of stuff as Default Dan Snap over on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it. And you'll see the signups going up over there. And I have fun with this, man. I'm more on the competitive side when it comes to Snap, but I definitely do a lot of production. So if you've seen any of the big tournaments floating around, the Snap.fan series, the Impulse series, things like that, that's me in the background. So
yeah, typically. Yeah, you do all that fun work. And for those who don't know myself, my name is Guest, also known as ItsGuestGaming. You could find me all over the place, but mainly as the lead content manager over at ccghub.gg. And I'm live streaming 3 to 4 times a week, typically on twitch.tv/ItsGuestGaming, looking at going back into the YouTube game on top of all of the billion things that I do in this community, because I've started to earn the name the hardest working man in Snap, and I don't know if I agree with that. However, I do know I work hard, and I'm trying to get out and do as many different things as possible. And I'm just very happy I have a family that supports me going through this journey. So Default Dan, thank you so much. And to all of our viewers, as well as our listeners, don't worry, the stream isn't ending, but this podcast is. So for those who have wrapped up the podcast, thank you. Thank you so much for listening. This is the Snapback Podcast, where you snap and we snap back. Default Dan, say goodbye to all the lovely people.
Y'all take it easy.
You jumped the gun.
I did.
There's a timing rhythm here, okay?
I did.
I say the phrase, there's a pause, and then you go, you want to get the fuck out of here that fast?
I'm hungry.
I'm hungry. I don't care, Cookie Monster. I will boot you out if that's what you want. That is fine by me.